Today we celebrate the influence that our fathers have had in our lives. And we had an audiovisual show that was sentimental, and I love that. I feel sentimental about my dad and my mom. But that doesn't mean that there weren't times that childhood was difficult. And this morning I want to recognize that, yes, some of you here have wonderful family memories. Your father, your mother, were everything you needed, gave you everything you needed, understood you, gave you the freedom you needed, the support that you needed. But every time we have a celebration day, whether it be Mother or Father's Day or Christmas or Easter or Valentine's Day, there are people who are on the outside because they don't have happy memories. They may have had a very, very difficult childhood. And those are the people who you see standing in the card section, looking at card after card after card, saying, that's too sweet, that's not how I feel. That's too terse, that doesn't sound like anything. That sounds like a memo from a business meeting. Trying to find the card that says the right thing that you can sincerely say. Because most of us know that our parents did the best they could. They did the best that they could. And I have a friend at Hallmark Cards. You guys know him, Tracy Eisnagel. And I keep pitching the idea. Hallmark needs to have a card for Mother's Day and Father's Day that says, you did the best you could. It would sell. I know it would. The truth is that every one of us has felt some pain as a child. And whether that hurt came intentionally or unintentionally, we undoubtedly experienced some measure of suffering in our family experiences. And for some of us, it was the physical pain of illness or an accident or violence. And for others, it was emotional pain that came with the death of a parent or a divorce or abuse or neglect. And still others of you, most of you, have simply felt the normal pain of growing up, experiencing the inevitable losses and broken dreams that litter the stage of childhood. And the truth is that if we did not have some difficult times, if our parents could protect us in a bubble and protect us from everything and every hurt and every illness, so we never got a cold and we never got a fever and we never felt bad, we would have no immune system, would we? We have to experience hurt in order to function as adults. A few years back, I discovered a book by Wayne Muller. He's a therapist and a minister, and I was fascinated by the title. It's called Legacy of the Heart: The Spiritual Advantages of a Painful Childhood. And in the introduction, Wayne stated something that I had to read several times to believe that he was serious, because it was a new thought for me. He says that after spending over 18 years working exclusively with adults who grew up in troubled families, he began to witness the tremendous courage of women and men, rich and poor, black and white, Latino and Native American, gay and straight, who sought to heal the painful memories of their childhood. And even as they struggled to be free, the reverberations of family sorrow continued to affect their adult lives. But he noticed that these people who were hurt as children inevitably experience a peculiar strength, a profound inner wisdom, and a remarkable creativity and insight. And his belief is that deep within them, just below the wound, lies a profound spiritual vitality, a quiet knowing, a way of perceiving what is beautiful and what is right and true. And since their early experiences were so dark and painful, they've spent much of their lives searching for gentleness and love and peace that they only got to imagine in the privacy of their own hearts. I do believe that a painful childhood invariably focuses our attention on the inner life. In response to childhood hurt, we have a heightened sense of awareness. It encourages us to watch things more closely, to listen more carefully, to notice our surroundings, to attend to the subtle imbalances that arise around us that tell us that something is not right. And it can develop into an exquisite ability to feel the feelings of others and to become exceptionally mindful of every conflict, of every flicker of hope and despair, and of pieces of information that may hold information that can bring healing. Wayne goes on to say that family pain can break us open and set our hearts on a pilgrimage in search of love and belonging, safety and abundance, joy and peace that we're missing from our childhood story. And seen through this lens, family sorrow is not only a painful wound to be endured, analyzed, and treated. It may, in fact, be a seed that gives birth to spiritual healing and awakening. It took a tremendous leap of faith for me to believe that the hurts from childhood could be a blessing. And for me, the way that I coped with it was to imagine a shelf and take those memories and things I didn't understand and say, I don't understand, I don't know what to do with it, but at least I have a shelf I can put it on. Put it on the shelf. And later on, I can take that down anytime I want to, analyze it, think about it, work on it. But it's okay, it can just live there. You know it's there. You know it has a place. Freely accessible when you want it. My therapist gave me some very good advice. I told him that I came to therapy thinking that I was hurt, that I hurt so bad. And what I discovered was I was so angry. I was so angry. And he said, those things in your life, and I'm saying this to you, whether it's your parents, whether it's an ex, whether it's a brother or sister or a friend, someone in the church who's hurt you, You can be as mad and hurt just as long as you want to be. No one can tell you how long it takes to get over being hurt, to get over losing a loved one, to feel grief, to feel the anger. But if you're ever going to get better, sometime you have to let go of it. And when the pain of staying where you are becomes greater than the fear of letting go of it, we're often able to move. Wayne says, "You are not broken." Hurt and pain is not a mortal wound. It doesn't irrevocably shape your destiny. You don't have to remove or destroy or tear anything out of yourself in order to build something new. And your challenge is not to keep trying to repair what was damaged, but your practice instead is to reawaken what is already wise and strong and whole and true within you, and to cultivate these qualities of the heart that you have access to in this very moment. When we experience pain from our families or from others, we inevitably ask, why? Why did this happen? I didn't deserve this. Why did it happen to me? And in the grip of suffering, we have the natural reflex to seek to find the reason why we hurt. And we're convinced that if we can find the cause, perhaps we can prevent the pain from ever coming again. And we start to wonder, is it punishment for something I did that was bad? Am I supposed to learn some lesson? Am I supposed to be getting strength of character? And we want to know why the pain is there. We want it explained. And Jesus says to us as Christians when he was here that living as a human, at the end of his life, when he was arrested and beaten and eventually died, and he cried out, my God, why have you forsaken me?" And I wonder how many times that I've come upon times in my life, and I ask you how many times you've come to times in your life when you've been wounded or betrayed, when perhaps your parents weren't there for you, when you want to cry those same words. You want to look back at your upbringing and say, "Daddy, Mommy, why did you let me down?" In our culture, we have a great fascination with concentrating on the injustices and unfairness and sufferings that came to us. And we continue this obsession with our spouses, with our partners, with our friends. And we tend to hold on to the need to know why we hurt. And we pick at the scabs and the scars in our heart. And we pick at them until they're open again and hurting again. And we keep doing that and waiting for an answer for why. And with modern psychology, which bless the people who are helping people, and as we understand more and more. But we tend to identify ourselves. I'm a child of an alcoholic. I'm an adult child of someone who is dysfunctional. I'm an adult child of someone who is chemically dependent. I was in a codependent relationship. And there's this subtle principle that underlines this naming process, that we have to say we're this and we're this, and we become to identify ourselves as that. And we do that saying, you know, if that hadn't happened, if the pain hadn't happened, if I hadn't had that person in my life, I would not have had pain. And the truth is, life and living life is pain. Buddha said that in life we would experience 10,000 joys and 10,000 sorrows. He was saying that suffering is part of life. In fact, as I was writing this silly jingle from the cotton industry came to me, and I was going, the touch and feel of suffering, the fabric of our lives. It becomes in the fabric of our life. Jesus said it another way. He said, in the world you'll have tribulation. Jesus knew that pain and suffering would come to the children of creation. He even said the poor and wounded would always be among us. And that even he, the Son of God, could not escape the pain that the world was going to give to him. And so it becomes easier to blame the ones that cause the pain than it does to feel the pain. Feeling the pain means we hurt. Blaming someone for the pain means that we're angry. Accepting the pain in our lives, accepting that our parents weren't perfect, accepting that, no, I didn't have enough. That happened. Can't change that it happened. I'm not going to pretend that nothing bad happened. But accepting that it did happen, and that I am now an adult, and I have the ability to see that through a different lens, and to see that through the understanding that my parents did the best they could, and come from a place of compassion that says they were hurting. Their parents hurt them. They loved me. It wasn't enough. None of us had enough. But they did the best they could. When we finally accept that we are not so special, that we are not the only one who's experienced pain, that we're part of thousands and millions of people who have experienced pain, we can move from blaming to accepting that this is part of life. And the person who did it is not being let off the hook because you say, I forgive you. And that's the biggest obstacle, to say, I forgive you. And that means they're getting off scot-free, and that just is not right. And you say, they're getting off scot-free, nothing's happening to them, and I'm left holding this bag of pain. And the truth is, the forgiveness is not for them. Forgiveness is for us, because it allows us to be set free from that endless cycle of pain and anger and recrimination that keeps us imprisoned. What we're forgiving is not the act, not what happened. We're not forgiving the divorce or the abuse or the betrayal or the incest. We're forgiving the actors. The people who could not manage to honor and cherish their children, their spouse, their friends, their own lives in a loving and gentle way. And we're also forgiving their suffering and their confusion and their unskillfulness and their desperation and their humanity. And we're saying they're just like me. They're doing the best they can. They did the best they could. One day an old rabbi, famous for his wisdom, came to visit a village. And there was a clever young student who saw this as an opportunity. The old master was going to speak before a gathering of the villagers the following morning, and the young rabbi decided to devise a test for him. At the right moment, in the middle of the gathering, the young man decided that he would stand and ask the elder rabbi a question. And he did, and he was holding a tiny bird in his hand. And he said, "Rabbi, I have a bird in my hand. Can you please tell me?" Oh, by the way, it's in his hand. His hand is closed. Have to go back. New picture. He's standing, the bird is in his hand is closed. "Rabbi, can you please tell me, is the bird in my hand alive or dead?" Now, if the rabbi answered the bird is alive, the young man could easily crush the small bird and hold it out for all to see that the rabbi was wrong. The bird is dead. On the other hand, if the rabbi answered the bird is dead, the young rabbi would simply let the bird fly away, clearly demonstrating his superior wisdom and cleverness. And the rabbi stood in silence and finally let the young man speak again. He said, "We know you're clever and wise, but can you tell me how you can possibly know if that bird in my hand was alive or dead?" And the rabbi thought for a moment, and of course everyone's waiting for his response. And then with infinite compassion, he looked at the young man and very gently said, "It's up to you, my friend. It really is up to you." We are set free from the cycle of suffering when we forgive. We have to understand that healing has its own timing. And we should nurture that. We should invite it. It can't be pushed. You know, it's like when we start to become an older teenager and you start hearing, you need to grow up. Well, you don't just grow up because someone tells you to grow up. You grow up when it's time to grow up. You grow up when you have experiences where you're on your own and you have to do it. How many of you have parents who said, "I used to walk 4 miles to school and I tunneled through the snowbanks to get there, and you have it so easy"? The truth is, if we lived then, if that happened in our world now, and all of the buses disappeared and all the technology disappeared, we would walk to school and tunnel through the snow. We don't have to, but we would. We would grow up if we needed to. So, where am I going with all this? This idea, if you did the best you could, certainly came from my personal experience of moving back into a solid, loving relationship with parents when it was very broken. And some of you, many of you have heard me tell this story, and it still has bearing, and I never get tired of telling it because it changed my life. And it proved to me this theory that our parents did the best they could. But when I had been away from the church, in our family, that was a very, very dark place if your child was not in church. Had left ministry, had left my marriage, had come out as a gay man. Everything that I promised I would never, ever let my dad know. And at some point, I called him because I needed him so badly, and I said, I know I've let you down. I know you're disappointed. He stopped me and said, stop right there. You need to know that you could never do anything that would make me stop loving you. And I carry that with me everywhere I go since then. And it is not just about my father. It's a metaphor for understanding God. We understand God through our parents. Some of you, it's through your mother, through a mother image. Some of you, as a father. And so, if we've had a good experience with our father and mother, God's this wonderful, benevolent. If it's been bad, often our image is that we're criticized, that we're not good enough. And what I want to invite you to do is to break the cycle. And it doesn't mean that you leave here today and say, okay, it's over. I've forgiven my mom. I've forgiven my dad. I've forgiven my friends. I've forgiven my spouse. I've forgiven my ex. Forgiven my boss. It requires only one thing, and that's a simple prayer that I'm going to ask us to do silently. And that is just to say, God, I can't do that. But I am willing to give to you my willingness to allow you to work in my life. You have permission to work in my heart until I can come to the place that forgiveness becomes something that is not forced, something that's organic, and something that's real, because you've experienced a heart change that gives you understanding to know they did the best they could. Let's take just a moment and each breathe our own prayers and offer our own thoughts to God, our own willingness to let God change our lives. And now as you do that, I want you to picture Jesus standing in front of you, hands open, and hand that thing, hand that hurt. Put it in those hands and say, I'm giving this to you. Work in my heart. Amen. I want us all to say together one thing before we leave. It's up here. We can all do it together at the same time. We're not going to mumble it. We're going to say it with enthusiasm. We're going to say it with conviction. Let's say it together. I'm going to do the best I can. And that's all that God asks of us. Amen? Amen. You know, I don't do the going to the back and doing the benediction and all that stuff. I wish I could. It's just not me. But usually we close with an invitation, a three-part invitation to join for membership, to start on a spiritual journey, or if you have a prayer. I feel like we've kind of done that this morning already in that quiet time. And so I'm going to ask the worship team to come. We're going to sing our closing hymn.